Greetings, dear ones. So good to be with you again. It's said that old habits are hard to break. That has become increasingly clear to me as I have attempted to learn to be a minister in the context of COVID, as old ways of being and doing are challenged constantly by the shift to online ministry, by the attempts to bridge distances that seem at times too great to be bridged. So I want to talk a little bit about old habits dying hard today, and I'd like to illustrate that point with a story about Gandhi. Whenever he had time, Gandhiji would hold an audience. He would stand with his assistants outside in the shade, and people would line up for miles, literally, to have just a moment with him. There was a woman from a village, an old woman, a grandmother, who was very concerned about her grandson, who seemed to be obsessed with sugar. He didn't want to eat his regular meals. All he wanted to do was eat sugar. Having exhausted all of the tricks she knew from raising her own children in trying to encourage her grandchild to change his diet, she decided to bring him to see Gandhi. They walked for 3 days and slept under the trees at night. They stood in line for hours, and when they finally had a moment to be with the master, she explained the situation, and he said to her, "Come back in 3 days." So they walked for 3 days back to the village, and they waited 3 days, and they made the journey again, and they stood in line again for hours and approached the master, and Gandhi said, "I remember you. I'm sorry, you need to come back in 3 days." So they journeyed their 3 days back to the village and waited and came back and stood in line for hours and finally had their brief audience with Gandhi, who said, "Young man, you need to stop eating sugar. It's not good for you. You need to eat rice and dal and potatoes, things that really give you strength." And the grandmother thanked Gandhi, and they made their journey back to the village. When the audience time had ended, one of the disciples went up to Gandhi and said, "Gandhiji, why did you make that woman and her grandson make the journey over and over again? You know how far it is. You know how hot it is." And he said, "I had to stop eating sugar." There are old habits that die hard. And today I want to talk about thank you notes. My mother taught me to write thank you notes. Not that I ever did it, but I knew I was supposed to do it. So all my life I felt a bit guilty at not writing thank you notes often enough. Last night, a friend who I hadn't seen in some years decided to gather a group of old friends. Many of us had not seen each other in decades. And we gathered on Zoom late last night, and there was a lot of reminiscence. I kind of dreaded it because I thought it would be nothing but nostalgia. And then one dear friend from many years ago, from our years in liberal religious youth, when we were growing up in the church, paused and said to us, "I want all of you to know how much your friendship meant to me when I was a teenager. I want you to know how your friendship has shaped my life, has opened my heart, has made a real difference in my life." As we settle into the winter, we have an opportunity to reconnect with people who have shaped our lives. We have an opportunity to tell one another how grateful we are for those gifts and how grateful we are for the opportunity to break old habits of disregard or of simply forgetting to reach out in gratitude and exercise a new practice of paying particular attention to those who have taught us, who have shaped our lives, who have helped us to stop eating too much sugar in the interest of a healthier way of being in the world. Thank you.